Hello guys, welcome to today's video. For today I'm going to review, document, and demo this really cool guitar right here. And this is the Dean VX in classic black. As you guys can see, this is very obviously Dean's take on the classic Flying V by Gibson. And let's just say they take a little too much from that guitar, but we'll talk more about that later. So this guitar, 22 frets, bolt-on neck. The knobs, the leftmost controls the tone for both pickups, and the other two knobs control the volume for each pickup individually. And then you've got your three-way selector switch. The pickups on this guitar are just factory Dean pickups that are basically mass-produced and put in all their cheap guitars. For what it's worth, they do sound really good. Like the bridge pickup has a very Dimebaggy tone to it. The neck pickup has a very Michelangelo Badiou-y tone to it. Again, for what it's worth, they sound good. And if this is what they're putting in all their cheap guitars, then they're doing something right. The fretboard, however, in the advertisement, it was shown as like a rich, dark fretboard, but seeing it here now, it's just kind of like reddish. I'm not a big fan of that, but it doesn't take away from how good the rest of the guitar looks. This guitar, or this version of it, has a black binding on the body. I believe the older models didn't have this, but I could be wrong because I had a friend who had one of these, but it was like in 2010-ish, and I don't remember his having the binding. But it looks really good on this guitar. It makes it look a lot more classic, if that makes any sense. The back of this guitar is pretty straightforward. Nothing too fancy going on back here, but one thing that caught my attention was that the strap button was on the neck joint plate. I've seen a lot of these guitars on the used market with cracks on the neck joint, and I believe the strap button being there creates a point of pressure for that kind of damage to form. But I haven't seen it on this guitar, or I haven't seen it happen, so I can't really verify that for you guys. As I stated earlier, this guitar takes a little too much from the classic Flying V by Gibson. So much so that a few years back, Gibson actually sued Dean. And this was one of the guitars they used as an example of how Dean stole their design or whatever. And honestly, I totally see it. This looks almost exactly like a Gibson Flying V, with the exception of course, the headstock. And maybe the wings on the body are a little more contracted. But again, I totally see it. Miraculously, Gibson lost that lawsuit. And I don't know how to feel about that, but I guess I can't complain too much about it because I wouldn't be documenting this guitar for you guys today. And this guitar just has that classic Flying V look. It looks great, with the exception maybe of the fretboard, which I mentioned earlier, but maybe you can condition that to be a little darker or something. I forgot to mention earlier, this guitar comes with cheap Dean branded tuners, but I can't complain about them too much because at the end of the day they hold tune very well, and that's mostly what matters. Okay guys, I'm going to try something new in my videos where whatever guitar I'm documenting, I'm going to try and show it to you guys from many angles just to give you guys an idea of what it looks like on stage, what it'll look like when you take photographs, while talking about what my initial thoughts are on the guitar after playing it. So this guitar in particular, super lightweight, 3 to 4 pounds, I'm not even kidding, and it feels really nice to play with it standing up. I mean, there's basically no neck dive at all. I mean, how could it? It's so freaking light. But this isn't necessarily a good sign. It could also mean they use the cheapest woods possible for the construction of this guitar. So that's the downside of that. This guitar just looks classy, beautiful, and although there is a Floyd Rose version of it, I think if I were to get a guitar that's classic like this, I would just leave it without a Floyd Rose to be different from my other guitars. Okay guys, so final thoughts on this guitar. I actually really like it. In terms of sound, I would give it an 8.5 out of 10. I was surprised by how good the pickup sounded. Like the bridge pickup sounds very Dimebaggy, the neck pickup sounds very Michelangelo Badio-y, and I appreciate that Dean does that on cheap guitars. In terms of feel, I would give it an 8 out of 10. It's super comfortable playing standing up because it's very light. It takes a little getting used to when you're playing sitting down though. But in terms of aesthetics, I would give it a 9 out of 10. Honestly, it just looks beautiful from almost every angle. In terms of construction though, I would give it a 6.5 out of 10. Yeah, like I stated earlier, I see a lot of these guitars on the used market with cracks on the neck joints, malfunctioning electronics. These guitars definitely weren't meant to last forever, but for a beginner, it's a great guitar, honestly. If you're a fan of how good this guitar looks, fortunately there are higher end versions of this guitar made by Dean. For example, the V59 and the V Select, both by Dean, are basically higher end versions of this guitar with neck through construction, better electronics, better tuners and everything. So there are options out there. You don't necessarily have to, get the cheap guitar and hope it'll last you a little while, or you don't have to go to the other extreme and buy like $3,000 Gibson or anything. In case you guys are curious, I bought this guitar for $300. I'll be trying to sell it for $350, which isn't much of a profit, but it's still $50 more than I had yesterday. Also, I've just been curious about these guitars for years. Now that I've owned one, I can say I really like them. And maybe in the future I'll be looking into getting a V59 or a V Select. Just because they're in the midpoint price range, I feel like they're the perfect flying V for me, since they look classy as heck and they are basically the best alternate to the $3,000 Gibson. Okay guys, I know I haven't made a video in forever, so to make up for that, as a little bonus on this video, I'm gonna show you guys what this guitar is compared to a Dean Razorback V. And obviously in terms of construction, the Razorback is a lot better. In terms of size, they're about the same, with the exception that obviously the Razorback's a lot pointier. The documentation video for the Razorback will be uploaded next week, so stay tuned for that. Okay guys, thank you guys so much for watching and being patient with me. If you have questions, comments, concerns about this guitar, drop them in the comments and then I'll try to get to them as soon as possible. Besides that, again, thank you guys so much. Stay safe and I will see you in the next video.